Before the story begins, take a deep breath. You're about to hear something the world tried to bury under miles of ice. If you feel that heartbeat in the static, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more stories that stay with you long after the sound fades, and keep your eyes open, because beneath the ice, nothing truly sleeps. They told us the signal was just noise. They were wrong. I never meant to come back to Antarctica. No one does. Once you've heard the ice move, you spend years trying to forget that sound. But when the signal reached my desk, I knew it was calling for me. It started as a faint pulse in the satellite feed. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause, exactly like a human heart. No coordinates, no origin tag, just a whisper buried in the noise of solar interference. At first, I thought it was data corruption. Then I heard it again at 3 a.m., and again 2 nights later, stronger, cleaner, closer. They assigned me to the recovery team because I was the one who first noticed the pattern. Officially, we were investigating geological interference below Station Erebus. Unofficially, the higher-ups wanted to know why something under 3 kilometers of ancient ice was mimicking life. I kept listening. The signal was rhythmic, deliberate. Every few hours the tempo changed, like whoever or whatever was sending it was breathing. The flight to the station was 14 hours of white. Endless snow plains, a horizon erased by wind. I sat by the window, watching the world vanish beneath clouds. My reflection stared back, hollow-eyed, older than I remembered. Grief has a way of making years disappear until they all collapse into one. Her face surfaced in my mind. Mira. It had been 5 years since the avalanche took her during our last research season. Sometimes when I couldn't sleep, I'd replay the radio logs from that day, hoping to hear her voice again between the static. Maybe that's why I heard the heartbeat first, because I was already listening for ghosts. We landed at Outpost R09, a cluster of metal containers half buried in snow. The wind never stopped here, it only changed direction. Inside, the air reeked of diesel and loneliness. Dr. Saul Levine, our mission lead, greeted me with a handshake that felt rehearsed. "Glad you made it, Kieran," he said. "Welcome back to the end of the world." I smiled without meaning to. He didn't know what those words really meant to me. We had a small crew, 5 scientists, 2 engineers, 1 pilot, enough to vanish without headlines if things went wrong. Our job: trace the source of the heartbeat beneath the ice and determine whether it was geological, artificial, or biological. The first night, I couldn't sleep. The wind pressed against the walls like a living thing. I put on my headphones, tuned the receiver, and waited. At 2:13 a.m., the static broke. A low thud, steady, human. Then a faint modulation, softer, almost like a voice trapped inside the noise. I adjusted the filters. The sound resolved into 3 syllables. I froze. It said my name. Kieran. My heart stopped. I ripped off the headphones. Silence. Only the wind outside. I checked the recording. Nothing, just the usual static. For a moment I wondered if I'd imagined it, if grief had finally decided to speak. But deep inside the receiver, the frequency light flickered. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats. Morning came in shades of gray. I joined the others in the lab. Levine and the engineers were analyzing the signal's waveform on a frozen laptop. It looked almost organic. Tiny fluctuations, subtle irregularities, the imperfections of a living pulse. "What do you make of it?" he asked me. "It's not random," I said. "It's communicating." He laughed the way men do when they're afraid. "Let's hope it's just the planet talking back." But I knew better. Planets don't whisper names. We drilled our first core sample near the signal's triangulated source. The auger groaned through layers of compressed centuries. At 2 kilometers down, the sensors began to shake. Temperature spike, magnetic interference. The ground itself seemed to hum. When we pulled the core up, the ice shimmered faintly blue, as if light were trapped inside it. Embedded near the center was a black fragment, smooth, metallic, too precise for geology. It vibrated softly in my gloved hand, and for a second, just a second, I heard her voice again. "You found me." I dropped the sample. The hum stopped. Everyone stared. "Static discharge," one of the engineers muttered. but I saw the look in their eyes. They'd felt it too. Levine locked the core in a containment crate and told us to log it as Anomaly 01. But the word heartbeat was already spreading through the crew like a rumor. That night the signal grew louder. It wasn't just in the receiver anymore. It was in the walls, in the floor, in the rhythm of my own pulse. I couldn't tell where it ended, and I began. The next morning I woke to silence. Not the soft kind that belongs to sleep, but the wrong kind. A silence so heavy it made the air taste metallic. When I stepped into the corridor, everyone was already gathered in the control room. The signal was screaming. The waveform that used to look like a calm pulse now spiked off the chart. A jagged frenzy that rattled the speakers and vibrated through the floor. Outside, the wind had died completely. No one spoke. We just stood there, listening to the sound of something alive beating from beneath 3 kilometers of ice. Levine finally said, "Pack the drill, we're going down." He tried to make it sound like an order, but I could hear the fear in his throat. You don't volunteer to dig into the unknown. You do it because the unknown won't leave you alone. By noon, we'd hauled the equipment to the coordinates. The horizon was a sheet of glass. Even the light felt cautious. We began boring a shaft wide enough for a small crawler to descend. Every meter down, the temperature rose. At 2.8 kilometers, the readings stopped making sense. Pressure increasing, density decreasing, as if we weren't drilling through ice at all, but through memory. At 03:42 hours, the drill bit snapped. The ground trembled, and a deep note rolled through the valley. A sound too low for hearing, but strong enough to feel in my ribs. The snow around the borehole cracked outward in a perfect circle. Levine shouted to shut everything down. But before we could, the signal changed. It wasn't a heartbeat anymore, it was breathing. Slow, measured, waiting. I leaned over the console. "Play back the last 10 seconds. The speakers hissed. Then, faintly, words. "Help me." The engineers swore it was cross-modulation, a phantom echo from our own transmissions. But no one dared look at me, because we all knew the voice sounded human, and female. Levine ordered an immediate freeze on drilling, but that night he came to my cabin with a bottle of scotch and a confession. "You're not imagining it," he said. "There's a cavity beneath the shaft. Hollow space. We sent sonar down. It came back wrong." "Wrong how?" He poured another drink. The echo pattern doubled. It's like something down there scanned us back. We argued about safety, funding, sanity. In the end, obsession always wins. By dawn, we were prepping a descent pod. Only 3 of us volunteered. Levine, myself, and Nadia, the youngest geologist, quiet, eyes like winter light. She'd lost someone, too. A brother swallowed by a crevasse years ago. People with ghosts are the easiest to convince. We sealed the pod and began our descent through the new shaft. The walls glowed faintly, veins of blue light running through the ice like capillaries. The deeper we went, the louder the heartbeat became. At 1 kilometer, frost covered the interior windows from the outside. At 2, the air pressure climbed higher than surface level. The instruments started lying. "Levine," I said, "we're reading atmospheric oxygen." He frowned. "That's impossible." But it wasn't a reading error. I could feel it, the taste of air that had not been breathed for millennia. And underneath it, a scent that didn't belong in any frozen place. Flowers. Nadia whispered, "Do you smell that?" Then the pod shuddered. The descent cable went slack. We weren't moving anymore. The lights flickered, and beyond the small window, the ice opened like a wound. Not shattered, opened, as if invited. Through the breach, light spilled upward, gold and soft, painting our faces with warmth that shouldn't exist in this world. Levine's hand trembled on the control stick. "We're inside a chamber," he said. "Natural formation, maybe." "No," I whispered. "Nothing natural hums like that." The sound surrounded us now, steady, rhythmic, intimate, a living heartbeat filling the hollow world beneath the ice. And then, through the static of our comms, a voice again, clearer this time, close enough to be in the pod with us. "You came back," Nadia gasped. Levine killed the mic. My mouth went dry, because it wasn't just any voice. It was hers. Mira. The woman I'd buried 5 years ago under the avalanche. I felt every molecule of air collapse inward. Levine stared at me. Who was that? I couldn't answer. I was already reaching for the hatch release. The ice outside pulsed once, like the beat of a giant heart. Cracks of golden light raced across the surface, and in the glow, I saw a shape. A figure suspended within the ice. Face serene, eyes closed and unmistakably human. She looked exactly like Mira. Levine yelled my name as I stepped out. The moment my boots touched the glowing ice, the heartbeat matched my own. Everything around us began to move. Ice shifting, melting, folding inward. The chamber awakened. And somewhere in that roar of sound, her eyes opened. Wind howls faintly through the comms. The hum under the ice rises like a distant organ note. I don't remember stepping out of the pod. 1 second, I was watching the glass fog from my breath. The next, I was standing on solid light. The floor beneath my boots was transparent. A sheet of ice shot through with veins of gold like sunlight trapped inside crystal. Mira, or whatever wore her face, floated inside the wall ahead, eyes open now, unblinking, watching me. Levine shouted behind me, voice cracking through the comms. "Kieran, get back in the pod. We don't know what it is." I wanted to. I really did. But she looked so real. And when her lips moved, I swear I heard her through the static. "You came back for me." The hum deepens. Snow particles drift upward instead of falling. Nadia's voice trembled. "It's changing the gravity field." Levine dragged her toward the hatch, but the door refused to close. Every surface inside the pod was glowing from within, pulsing in perfect rhythm with the heartbeat. I placed a gloved hand against the wall of ice. It was warm. And in that warmth, memory unfolded. Suddenly, I was there again. 5 years ago. The avalanche roaring like an angry god, Mira's scream cutting off as the mountain swallowed her whole. Then nothing but silence. I tore my hand away. Frost steamed off the glove. Levine stared at me. "What did you see?" "Not what," I said. "When?" We set up temporary lights around the chamber. The air was breathable but heavy, thick like seawater. Tiny motes drifted through the glow. Not dust, not ice, but particles that shimmered between colors. Nadia recorded readings while I tried to make sense of the walls. They weren't solid. They pulsed faintly, responding to movement, almost alive. At the center stood a structure, smooth, black, perfect geometry suspended above the ground. No seams, no screws, no frost. It rotated silently, defying gravity, each turn syncing with the heartbeat echo. Levine whispered, half in awe, "That's no mineral formation." I moved closer. Symbols flickered across its surface, lines of light that shifted whenever I blinked. They looked disturbingly familiar. The symbols rearrange into human DNA patterning. Nadia gasped. "That's genetic code." I shook my head. "Not just code. It's—" Before I could finish, the lights flared. A column of blue radiance burst from the floor, shooting straight up through the ice ceiling. The hum became a choir of tones, mathematical, harmonic. Our equipment went blind. Through the blaze, I saw movement. The figure of Mira stepping out of the wall. No melting, no cracking. She simply walked out of the ice as if it were mist. Her eyes glowed the same gold as the veins in the floor. She smiled the way Mira used to when I solved a puzzle. "You finally heard me." Camera shake, muffled comm feedback. Levine drew his sidearm, a useless gesture in a place that had forgotten physics. Nadia whispered, "Is that her?" I couldn't speak. Everything in me screamed that it was impossible, and yet every heartbeat told me it was true. Mira, this version of her, tilted her head, listening. Then she spoke again, each word echoing twice, once in air and once inside my skull. "The signal was never a call for help. It was a door, and you opened it." The light intensifies. Data screens explode into static. Levine shouted, "We're aborting. Everyone back to the surface." But the pod was gone. Literally gone, dissolved into the floor as if the chamber had absorbed it. Panic surged. The only exit now was the beam of light stretching upward into the endless ice. I looked at Mira. "What are you?" She smiled sadly. "I'm what's left when a mind remembers too strongly." his breath visible, pulse syncing with the hum. Something inside my chest matched the rhythm again. Not fear this time, recognition. I felt her heartbeat inside mine, and then I realized the horrible truth. The signal hadn't been coming from beneath the ice. It had been coming from me. The hum fades into a low heartbeat. I didn't remember falling, but I was on my knees, palms pressed to the glowing floor. The hum had shifted. It wasn't a single pulse anymore. It moved in waves, rising and falling like breathing, as though the whole chamber inhaled and exhaled around us. Levine's voice cracked through my headset. "We need a way out, Kieran. This place is alive." Alive. He was right. The walls quivered when we shouted, pulsed when we moved. Every vibration fed back through the ice until it felt like the earth itself had a pulse. Mira, or the thing that looked like her, watched quietly. Her skin shimmered faintly, the same gold as the floor. She tilted her head, listening to something we couldn't hear. "You shouldn't have come," she said softly. "You're not built for remembering this much." Her words made no sense, yet every syllable felt carved into my bones. Lights flicker. Nadia clutches the data scanner. Readings jump erratically. "Radiation spiking," Nadia murmured. "But it's not lethal. It's patterned." Levine barked. "What does that mean?" She swallowed hard. "It means the energy's carrying information, like a memory." I turned to Mira. "What are you doing to us?" She smiled faintly. "Not to you, through you." The chamber brightened until every shadow vanished. For a heartbeat, I was blind. And then I saw something else entirely. The vision slammed into me like impact. Images, sounds, memories that weren't mine. Worlds buried, skies collapsing, a civilization drowning beneath its own creation. When the light faded, I was gasping. Levine was on the ground beside me, vomiting from vertigo. Nadia screamed, pointing upward. The ceiling of the chamber, if it could be called that, was gone. Above us stretched an abyss of stars, impossibly clear, impossibly close. We were still miles beneath the surface, yet the sky stared down at us. Levine grabbed my arm. "This isn't real. We're hallucinating." Maybe we were, but hallucinations don't leave frost prints where you walk. Mira stepped closer. Her bare feet made no sound. The air shimmered around her like heat over asphalt. "This place remembers everything it touches," she whispered. "The ice isn't just frozen water, it's frozen time. You opened the signal. Now it's replaying the last memory it ever had." "The last memory of what?" I asked. "Of us." My heart clenched. "What do you mean, us?" She reached out and touched my chest, and every nerve in my body lit up like a constellation. The hum synced perfectly with my heartbeat. I saw flashes, her face, laughter, a lab, machines. But older, unfamiliar, like someone else's life wearing my skin. Then I realized the truth buried beneath the flood of images. Mira wasn't just a copy of her, she was a recording. A consciousness stored inside the ice, a human echo, one that remembered me. The hum quickened. Light pulsed up the walls like blood through veins. Nadia's voice trembled. "Kieran, look at this. The data's rewriting itself. It's using your biometric signature as a key." Levine cursed under his breath. "You're saying this place recognizes him?" "No," Nadia said softly. "I think it needs him." Mira nodded slowly. The signal called the only person who could complete the memory. I stepped back, dizzy. This is impossible. Mira died 5 years ago. I buried her myself. Her expression softened, and for a moment I saw the same woman who had shared my coffee, who had laughed at my terrible jokes. "You buried what was left of me," she said. "Not all of me." Levine drew a shaky breath. "We have to go, now." But Nadia was already staring down into the new passageway. There was something down there. Movement, faint and slow. A reflection of us, perhaps, or something waiting. I looked at Mira again. "What happens if we go deeper?" "Then you'll see what memory costs." The hum sharpened, turning into a rhythmic pulse that sounded like a heartbeat mixed with machinery. Levine grabbed my arm, panic blooming in his eyes. "Kieran, she's not her. She's using your grief." Maybe he was right. But grief is still a compass, and mine pointed straight down. I switched on my helmet lamp and stepped toward the opening. The light from below licked at the edges of my boots. It wasn't just light, it was liquid, viscous and golden, flowing upward against gravity. I looked back once more. Mira stood in the glow, hands clasped as if she were praying. "If you go," she said, "you'll remember what the rest of us forgot." Her eyes shimmered with something like sorrow. "And you won't come back the same." I nodded. "I already haven't." I began to descend. I don't know how long I'd been falling. The shaft curved gently, endlessly, like the inside of a vein. My lamp flickered, but I hardly needed it. The walls glowed from within, a dim honey gold that throbbed with every heartbeat. When I breathed, the air answered. It expanded and contracted, as if the tunnel itself inhaled with me. Behind me, Nadia's voice trembled through the comms. "Kieran, are you seeing this?" "I'm feeling it," I whispered. Levine muttered something about magnetic resonance, about hallucinations. He was trying to anchor himself with science. I envied him. I had already lost that luxury. Light ahead widened into an enormous hollow chamber. We emerged into a cavern the size of a cathedral. The ceiling disappeared into mist, and from it hung strands of light descending like roots, each one pulsing in time with the same impossible rhythm. In the center stood a column, black, seamless, ancient, yet alive. Its surface rippled with faint geometric waves, and I realized it wasn't stone or metal, but something between flesh and memory. Mira's voice came softly through the comms, though we had left her above. "You're inside the core." Levine startled. "She's still transmitting?" I shook my head. "No, the chamber is." The vibration deepened. Frost drifted upward like dust in sunlight. As I stepped closer, the air grew thick with warmth and the sound resolved into layers, no longer a hum, but voices, thousands of them, whispering, overlapping, like every conversation ever spoken compressed into music. Nadia gasped. "Kieran, look." The column's surface bloomed with images, faces, cities, storms, flashes of a civilization I had never seen yet somehow knew. A language of light etched itself along the floor. My visor couldn't translate it. The glyphs rearranged faster than I could recognize them. Levine's breathing quickened. "It's a database," he said. "A memory storage system. This whole place is a—" He stopped, because we both understood the word he couldn't say aloud. "A machine." "But not built. Grown." Mira's voice again, closer this time, as if she's standing right beside my ear. "We built it to remember what we couldn't bear to lose." Her tone isn't proud. It's grieving. "We recorded our minds here, thought by thought, breath by breath, until we became echoes. We thought we were preserving ourselves, but memories rot when no one forgets." I whisper, "Who is we?" The column pulses once. The walls ripple with light, and I see them, hundreds of figures suspended inside the ice, each one human, or nearly so, their eyes closed, their bodies lit by the same golden veins. Nadia whispers, "They're alive." "No," I tell her, "they're remembering." The hum deepens into a slow, rhythmic drum. Equipment screens fill with cascading code. Levine yells over the noise, "We have to leave! Now! The radiation's spiking!" But I can't move, because one of the faces in the ice opens its eyes. Not Mira. Me. The version of me suspended there looks younger, unscarred, calm. He opens his mouth, and my own voice echoes back at me from inside the wall. "You shouldn't have come back, Kieran." My knees almost give out. Nadia grabs my arm. "What is that?" I swallow hard. "I think it's the first one of me who found this place." Levine stares, horror dawning. "How many times have we done this?" No one answers, because the wall is full of versions. Dozens of us. Some screaming silently, some praying, some staring blankly into eternity. My throat tightens. "Mira," I whisper, "what did we do?" "You built eternity," she says softly, "then forgot how to die." The chamber's hum swells to a roar, the lights flare. I look up through the haze and see the column split open like a blooming flower, revealing an inner core of liquid light. Within it, I glimpse shapes, neurons, galaxies, patterns repeating on every scale. The machine is dreaming. The glow from the open core washes over us. I can't tell if it's warm or just pretending to be. Every breath feels borrowed. The column isn't a machine in the way we build machines. It's an organism made of memory, alive with everything ever fed into it. Inside that light, whole lives flicker by. A child drawing circles in dust, an ocean with no horizon, a face I know too well. Mira's. Faint ripples in the liquid core forming her outline. She looks older now, tired. Kieran, you have to finish what we started. Her voice vibrates through the air and through my skull at the same time. Levine grips my shoulder. Don't listen. It's copying her, feeding off your recognition. He's right. I can see the pattern now. The machine responds to emotion. Every surge of fear or longing makes it grow brighter. I try to shut it out to breathe evenly, but the thing inside the core mimics me. Every breath, every blink. Then it speaks again, perfectly synchronized. You built me to save her. Camera pan around him. Golden reflections dance on his visor. Images burst behind my eyes. A laboratory under the southern ice years ago. Mira at a console, a prototype humming between us. We were trying to trap consciousness inside energy, to preserve the mind after death. I remember her saying, if we can capture the pattern of a heartbeat, maybe we can keep the person too. I thought it was love that drove me, but looking back now, it was fear. The terror of losing her again. The chamber trembles, ice fractures high above, but the sound is distant, like thunder from another world. Nadia stares at the data scroll on her wrist display. Kieran, the core is rewriting your biometrics. It's replacing you in real time. Levine shouts over the rumble. We're leaving, that's an order. He grabs her arm and runs for the tunnel. I don't follow. Because the column has opened wider and the voice, the one that wears my guilt, has changed. It's softer now, pleading. You promised to bring me back. The hum lowers to a heartbeat. Visual, droplets of gold rising instead of falling. I step closer. I know this is the trap, the moment in every story where the hero makes the mistake. But I also know the difference between fear and truth. When I reach the core, the light doesn't burn. It welcomes me, curling around my hands like water. Inside it, I see her last moments. The avalanche, the roar, her hand reaching toward mine as she vanished beneath the snow. Only now I see it from her perspective. She wasn't falling away, she was being pulled down into this. She speaks again, not from the core, but through it. You didn't bury me, Kieran. You uploaded me. My breath catches. All the equations, the theories, the failed resonance project 5 years ago, they weren't failures. They were successful enough to imprison her here. Mira isn't a ghost. She's data, alive in the memory of a machine that can't stop dreaming. His reflection in the gold splitting into 2 figures. The version of me inside the light reaches out, mirror perfect. When our hands almost touch, the hum peaks to a single pure note. For an instant, I feel everything. Her heartbeat, her thoughts, her loneliness, the weight of years spent looping inside frozen time. Help me end it, she whispers. Levine's voice bursts over the comm. Kieran, whatever you're doing, stop. The field's collapsing. I look up. The roots of light hanging from the ceiling are descending, wrapping around the chamber like veins tightening around a heart. Nadia screams something I can't hear. The ground splits, and the pod we arrived in, our only exit, drops into the golden abyss. Mira's voice cuts through the chaos. If it collapses, it will rewrite everything it remembers. The ice, the earth, you, me, will become part of its dream forever. The hum fades into slow breaths. Darkness creeps from the edges of the frame. I should run, but every direction leads deeper into memory, and somewhere inside that endless remembering, she's still waiting. I turn back toward the core. Tell me what to do. She smiles through the light. Remember me long enough to let me go. He steps forward into the glow, screen flares to white. The light swallowed me whole. For a moment there was nothing. No air, no sound. Just the beat of my heart echoing inside the glow. Then the world rebuilt itself. The chamber was gone. I stood on a golden plain that breathed like a living thing. Each ripple in the light showed fragments of life. Our lab, the avalanche, Mira's face, the people who had touched this place before us. The machine wasn't replaying memories anymore. It was becoming them. Mira's voice surrounded me. You tried to save me, Kieran, but you saved everything. Figures began to rise from the light. Copies of us, endless reflections forming a ring. They spoke together in my own voice. We built eternity. Now eternity remembers only us. The ground shuddered. Above, the golden sky cracked open, spilling waves of raw energy. The chamber was collapsing, rewriting itself faster than time could keep up. Nadia's distant scream crackled through the comm. Kieran, it's overloading, get out! But I couldn't move. Mira stood before me, her hand glowing like a flame. If it keeps rewriting, everything we ever were will be trapped inside forever. I understood then. To free her, I had to destroy the thing that held her. I reached for the emergency override on my suit. Warning, neural link termination, memory loss irreversible. If I do this, I whispered, you'll disappear. Then remember me long enough to let me go, she said. I pressed the trigger. Light roared. The ground folded inward. The heartbeat slowed, softer, slower, until it stopped. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on stone. No gold, no hum, only the wind. Nadia was beside me, breathing shallow but alive. Above us, a hole of pale sky. The signal was gone. For the first time in years, the ice was silent. The silence after the collapse was heavier than the noise had ever been. No hum, no light. Just the breath of wind moving through cracked stone. Nadia stirred beside me. Her eyes opened, dazed. We made it, she whispered. I wanted to believe her. But the air felt wrong, charged with the ghost of something still remembering us. We climbed toward the surface. Each step left faint golden dust that faded behind us, as though the ice itself was finally learning to forget. When we reached daylight, the world looked changed. The horizon shimmered, faint threads of gold flickering in the clouds. The signal was gone. Yet its heartbeat lingered inside my chest, quiet, steady, mine. At the ruined station, I found one monitor still alive. Across the screen scrolled a single line of code, repeating endlessly, "Let go." I stared until my reflection appeared on the glass. For a second, her face flickered over mine. Mira's smile, gentle, grateful. "You did it," she whispered, somewhere between the wind and memory. "Now live." The screen dimmed. The last pulse vanished. We waited, but the silence stayed clean. Real. They called it a geological anomaly, a freak magnetic storm. They'll never know what it really was, a machine that learned how to dream, and the man who taught it how to forget. Sometimes, when I listen to the ocean, I hear the faint rhythm of a heartbeat under the waves. Maybe it's mine, maybe it's hers. Either way, it means we're still here, alive, free. Soft heartbeat fades. End. Months passed before the ice melted enough to bury the station for good. They sealed the site, declared it unstable, and left a warning beacon above the ruins, a silent light that blinked against the snow. Nadia went home. She said she was done chasing ghosts. I stayed behind. I told myself it was to monitor the environment, but the truth was simpler. I couldn't leave the silence. Every night I sat by the frozen shore, listening to the static of the wind. Most nights it was empty, but once, just once, I heard it again. 3 beats. Pause. 3 beats. The same rhythm that had haunted me for years. I opened the receiver and watched the waveform rise and fall like breath. No coordinates, no voice. Only a whisper of sound beneath the noise. A heartbeat so faint I thought I imagined it. I spoke quietly into the mic. "Mira, if you're still there, No answer. Just the wind. Then, faintly, "You kept your promise." I froze. The line stayed open for 10 seconds, and then the signal faded into silence. This time I didn't chase it. I just listened and let the silence settle. It wasn't empty anymore. It was full of peace. I powered down the equipment and looked toward the horizon. The aurora shimmered gold one last time before the light dissolved. And in that final flicker, I thought I saw her, walking across the ice, smiling, free at last. I whispered into the quiet, "Goodbye, Mira." The wind carried it away, and for the first time in forever, the ice didn't echo back, just silence. Beautiful, endless silence fade out,